welcome back to Getting Ahead of Ourselves.
Getting ahead of ourselves.
Why did you do that?
I'm Kyle.
What are we talking about today, Kyle?
We are talking about the number 17. Today's episode brought to you by 17.
Today's episode brought
The
to you
number
by...
of... There's literally nothing I can think of that's related to the number 17.
No, not this one. Here we go.
Okay.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Ladies.
Oh, because you said here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know if that was the lead into something or if
So
you
you
were
weren't
referencing...
gonna finish the song?
No, it's too late.
Okay, fine. All right.
The rhythm was all messed. I didn't understand what was happening.
Okay,
I missed the opportunity.
Here is this one's interesting because I feel like there's some ways to go with it, and then alternatively, I feel like it just ends if we have a state of agreement.
Okay.
And then it's just over. So this one will be interesting.
So this episode might not happen. That's what you're saying. We might.
It really depends.
Okay.
So as written, it says, "What if everyone is a porn star?"
What?
And I specifically have in parentheses, OnlyFans.
Wait, didn't we talk about this with the meat thing?
I think we kind of did, but I feel like there's more to talk about on this specific one. What did we talk about on the meat thing that correlates back to this topic?
This has been a weird series of episodes.
You picked all the wrong numbers. I don't know what to tell you. Actually, that's not even true. They're all bad. That's the big thing, is that they're all bad.
What if everyone was a porn star? Isn't that kind of the reality we live in now?
Well,
Aren't we already there?
That's why I was interested.
I
Well,
mean, like,
you and I aren't.
Porn is a very subjective term, and everyone basically whores themselves out on the internet in their own special way every single day. That's what we're doing right now. Isn't that the entire state of existence?
I think that's a really fascinating perspective to have, and I'm not sure I disagree with it yet. But I mean, there's a reason that you and I make sketch comedy and not post our genitals online, right?
Well, I guess what is porn? I guess what is the concept?
Let's specify
the
porn.
line is just defined by the
Let's just, I mean, so we'll keep
so.
this as PG as possible and talk about it in generalized terms and have no reason to go specifically graphic or anything. But let's just classify porn as nudes and beyond.
Okay.
Nudes for the purpose of sexual interpretation, not like artistic nudes. And I know there's a whole conversation to be had on this, but probably not anything that people would look at and be like, this is timeless and we'll make it back, it'll last 50 years and people will be looking at this. That's not what I'm talking about. So what does society look like if we're all just doing this? And I think kind of the question, so what's interesting is maybe this thought experiment has existed before, which is if we're all doing the same thing, does that negate the need for that thing as a company?
That's kind of where I went to first, because I think whether or not it's pornography or how you define pornography, or I think at some point that becomes irrelevant. That's not even what we're talking about.
No, we're talking about more of the implication of people all doing the same thing.
Everyone is self-employed and selling themselves to other people who want to pay for them.
Does that mean...
That's why I made the comparison. It feel like that's what we do to an extent. We sell aspects of ourselves and the things we create to other people who a lot of whom do the same thing. I actually trade money with people sometimes. I support Squire on Patreon.
You definitely say that, and that's interesting because then why do corporations even exist? If that's the potential for a reality where everyone can truly sell themselves as a concept to anyone else and we're all just buying each other's entertainment, then how does anything else even exist?
I feel like this dips into economics.
I think
which is where I truly become helpless.
We really should have Thomas in for this one, shouldn't we?
Maybe. You want to go get him?
Yeah, let me go see if he wants to be in on this.
Okay,
We'll just restart it.
I'll cut here.
Okay, so we're jumping back in. We have managed to get the people qualified to say something. We have both Thomas and Kate. Say hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
So Kyle and I were discussing this topic only for us to both realize we were totally out of our depth in this. And I don't know how you just Snow Whited up in here. You just came in and the animals flocked.
I know. He's licking my elbows. You're trying to lick everything else.
You gotta calm down, Gannon. All right. So we got to a certain point where we realized that this was just totally out of our zone. So what was the last thing I said specifically?
We were talking about the concept of basically what does the world and the economy look like if every single person is basically selling their own content to everybody else.
Right.
Even though those people are doing the same thing. And I think your question was, why even have corporations at that point?
It was, yeah, so the point that I made that I vaguely touched up on with you guys was, if everyone can truly make money and a living from just exchanging their own personhood, their own entertainment, whether it's nudes or YouTube videos or whatever, if we're all willing to buy it, which I actually kind of think there's a market for everyone.
Yeah, I feel like we've proven that. Again, this already exists.
Yeah. Well, so then the question is like, what happens to the class system, and why does anyone do the jobs that other people don't do? Do we have construction workers, or do they decide they don't need that money because they can sell pictures of themselves, their feet, their socks, their underwear? Who cares? They can sell some element of their existence, and then they no longer need those jobs to make money.
Well, so jumping past the whole would everyone even want to sell themselves in this fashion, let's just assume that they do.
Okay.
What you're now describing is a society where instead of using money, you're essentially just selling your self-generated content.
Right.
In other words, I feel like you could replace money with content, right?
It's just like a weird digital barter system now.
At which point, everything else about the economy falls away. So who's going to build homes and, right?
Right.
So, I mean, assuming that everyone would rather sell content and can afford to do so, then that's all that happens, which means the rest of the world starts to deteriorate, right?
Or,
the houses...
If we're talking about instead of like money as the actual trade system, do we have people who are construction workers purely because the alternative to money is clout, right? Like a company pays you in fame instead of money. You would technically get more people interested or involved. So maybe like the lower class system functions based on all of the other weird corporate greed things.
Yeah.
Because companies are smart. They're going to figure out a way to get people.
They'll adapt.
They're going to figure out some way for people to work for them and slave away just so that they can make sure that the company still functions.
Yeah.
But how does that work without money? Is it truly just that you trade like, hey, I know that you're selling whatever, you're a construction worker, your name is Jim or whatever. I know that you only make $300 a week or whatever selling your nudes or your content or what have you. But if you work for us, we promote you blank, you know?
Yeah.
It sounds like you're just talking about another thing that already exists, which is like talent management companies or multi-channel networks in the case of YouTube or things like that.
Is that what has to exist if everyone sells themselves as...
I don't know if it has to exist, but it would. It
Right.
100% would.
Yeah. Well, because they'd have to adapt somehow.
Exactly.
They'd have to figure out a way to... Well, and they already kind of do. They found a way to market everything with people.
True.
To other people with other people. And they've made it more of like a casual occurrence. But the biggest question is what would happen to everything else?
So,
like, how would it not completely destroy the construct of the world we know as it is now?
So does this mean that the fastest way to eat the rich, destroy the elite class, is to truly just have everyone sell their own nudes? Because I'm thinking that this is a possibility. I mean, truly,
if everyone were famous, would celebrities still be such a big deal? Would they still be so highly paid? Yeah, exactly.
You're describing a circle,
A
right?
few different questions here that I'm interested in all of them.
Okay.
So, I sell my nudes, and I spend that money on someone else's nudes, who spends that money on someone else's nudes.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
And it just goes back.
Isn't that the economy, though?
Would money even exist?
No.
Would there even be a
Isn't that
need
how
for
the
currency?
economy
Like,
works, though?
would
It all-
nudes be the currency?
Everyone buys each other's nudes. That's
But
how it works.
isn't that like in a small town, right? A small town is attempting to raise its economy, right? Everyone's just sort of trading back around that money to make the economy grow. And so one person sells shoes and one person sells food and whatever. But all the money circles back around because the person who sells food is going to put that back into, I mean, isn't this kind of the whole, don't get me wrong, I don't know a lot about capitalism because all I need to know is known, but isn't this kind of the foundation for it? Which is like, you give the money to your local market, and that local market puts that money into other things to help grow the economy. So it all comes back around. So like, I trade my nude, you pay for my nude subscription, I pay for your nude subscription, we both pay for their nude subscription, and that's how it's supposed to cycle, right?
Unfortunately, the only part of capitalism that's not in the equation that you're describing is that capitalism generally involves growth. So it's almost like that cycle would eventually become not enough, and they would have to introduce a new source of income in order to create some kind of growth for them to be a lot more prosperous.
This is why I think it has to be nudes. Because everyone can start with wanting to sell your art, with wanting to sell your words, with wanting to sell your sketches, but then it's not going to be enough. If that's the foundation, the stakes always have to be raised.
Well, and what's interesting about that is we don't even touch on the fact that what that would do to the general idea and or need for sex and like the sexual tension between men and women and like the sexual needs of society, like what would happen. I definitely think that Larry Flint would roll over in his grave first immediately.
That's the porn guy?
Yeah, he is the creator of Hustler. And there's like a whole the people versus Larry Flint and all of that shit. Has something to do with Charles Keating was the one trying the case, and which is funny because in like 86 or 85 they wound up he wound up being a huge fraud and was wound up going under for insurance fraud and all kinds of shit like that. But yeah, we don't even touch on the fact that we would be so heavily monopolizing sex.
Yeah.
I feel like
so
this really
heavily
ties into like the Chinese social currency kind of concept, like the Black Mirror Meow Meow Beans sort of setup of like
Christ.
I do not know a single thing you just said.
Have you seen the episode of Black Mirror where
Community
they rate each other?
I have, but that's a different thing because that's
I guess
that
I'm
would
playing
be a
off of
different
like what
kind
you're
of thing,
talking
I
about
think.
with like fame being instead of currency. It's like
Right.
it's more of like a social thing where it's like just
well, yeah, then it becomes a popularity contest.
right. It's more just like people rate you based on anything you do, and probably being naked would get you a lot of points at some point. But
right, so
like you would.
But that's what I'm
you
saying.
would just increase in wealth by performing. It'd just be everybody performing for everybody else.
This is my point, which is why I don't think what you said makes sense, which is that we all sell our own content and that's what we are. I'm saying that the conclusion to that reality is everyone is a porn star. It has to be. Yeah. At a certain point,
you know what?
we all have
to
get there.
All right.
So once that happens, what are we looking at? Because that's the only, like,
oh my God.
You either become a porn star or you, I guess, are the poor class. You're unwilling to do the things that
it would still ultimately become an us versus them kind of thing where it's like everybody that's willing to get naked in front of a camera versus everyone who's not.
Is this the way that Christianity dies out? Because they're not going to be willing to do that.
I mean, it's kind of already doing that.
That's true.
We're already kind of on that path.
The more people feel validated to express themselves openly in every manner whatsoever, Christianity just kind of shrinks. But,
So I do want to jump in and add that you're going to end up with a new class system. Right?
You're
Where
right.
The people that are the most appealing to the most people are going to be the wealthiest, and the people that are the least appealing.
It still comes down to who's attractive.
It is just kind of like a high school system determining like who's at the top of the
guy at the talent show that got no
pretty.
claps.
right.
because it's all about looks, right? Because it's
not even necessarily looks, right? The guy who goes all out on his YouTube video or tries desperately to be funny on Twitter and gets like one reply or one follow.
Right.
That poor guy is always going to be at the bottom of the totem pole.
Unless he has like a massive like forearm dick. Because then it's going to become about how we categorize men and women, because it would become a judge of not just how attractive you are, but the quality of your sexual parts.
So here's
Women with big boobs.
Here's what's frustrating. It doesn't sound like you're describing a different society than the one we live in.
No, it doesn't.
The annoying thing about every one of these episodes, though.
It's the conclusion, truly, that in a society where everyone is a porn star, nothing changes about the functionality of that society.
I mean, I definitely think a lot would change, but I definitely think a surprising amount would stay the same because, yeah, we already do this. This is shit we already do on the internet all day long.
You play the YouTube algorithm, you appeal to people as a politician, like it's the same. Yeah. People already do this crap.
And the people who make the most money will always influence how the algorithm works or what's the most popular at the time, trends, things like that.
So then what does change?
If everything else.
Right, so what could that possibly look like? Because here I am thinking, like, if we're all porn stars, the economy must change. Everyone's their own business owner. There's all this, like, money becomes less of a thing.
Does that mean old people become porn stars? Like, are we're talking literally everybody? Shit's gonna get weird.
Well, it's like...
Well, you need old people for old people, right?
I was thinking, like, the difference would be, like... It's
then where do we draw the line on child pornography?
Right, okay, so... Not that. It's just that's not.
Just not that. We're just gonna pretend that that's not a thing that would totally fucking happen.
I mean,
because it already does.
I think so. I don't want to lean in it too much because I think it's a whole nother like.
It's its own.
But I will say that I think that does become a higher risk for sure. Or truly, because one of the ways we're fighting like child pornography and unconsensual sexual encounters and stuff is by letting people feel validated within their own sexual entity. That's like. One of the biggest things
repression was the biggest issue in terms of sexual violence.
So if no one's fucking weird about it, then is that the same threat that it was? That's kind of a different question.
Jesus, you could go in a whole different direction.
I'll just put that.
I'm sorry, I asked.
To go a completely different direction, there's a side industry I realized that it would open up here actually, which is there is a different way. There's a different way you could make money without being one of those people, and it's basically just being a PR guy for those people.
Sure.
If you're somebody who can manipulate the system, that's a whole other.
So we're back to Google being in control.
Right.
But
exactly, though. But exactly. It's all of those corporations that already own stakes in the internet as just large entities like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. They would just simply slightly adjust their business model. Yeah. And they would be just fucking fine.
I guess that's the answer to your question before. That's what the corporations become instead. It's just the ones that can...
They become pimps, essentially.
All the stuff that's happening.
Are you sure? But do they also sell their own nudes? Right,
the
you're talking about
individuals might, but
See, but I
you
think
might not have to.
I think there would be a huge crowd of people that would ultimately opt to work. I mean, there are plenty of people who don't need to work and still work anyway.
So then the answer is that construction workers would exist because they wouldn't want to sell their nudes.
We would just have significally less.
We're talking about like, let's say they don't have to, right? Like we can tie this back into a previous episode of like Future Without Jobs. Robots do all the menial labor. There aren't construction jobs available.
See, if it were that.
So like,
if it were
if
that,
everyone's doing like, so this is the default job is like doing your own thing online, but that existing creates other jobs of people who create talent agencies, who do PR work, who help, who will take a percentage of you, the popular person's money, to make you even more popular. So like I think there are still other jobs that crop up as a result of the majority of people doing this weird selling your own image and personality kind of thing.
So then the question is, how far are we from this reality? And it doesn't necessarily have to be nudes, because it sounds like what we're all kind of agreeing on is that even if every single person was a porn star or had an OnlyFans or whatever, it's so close to mirroring the reality we already live in.
I was going to say, this will become known as the episode in which we theorize about the world as it already exists.
Yeah.
For a half an hour.
Well, but I do think there was a point that's interesting to make, which is that there is no difference. Like, that in itself is a fascinating conclusion to come to, which is that if everyone was literally a porn star, there is almost no difference to the functionality between that reality and this one now. Almost none.
The changes would only be significant in like really specific circumstances.
I agree.
I think the difference that we're talking about is that I will say right now it's easy for us to get kind of an obscured view of this because we do this as a job and because we know people who do this as a job.
Right.
But I do think the majority of the world do not currently have a job that you could describe as like a performance based like career.
I agree.
So I think that actually isn't. So I do think it would change things if suddenly everybody were doing it at the same time. Weirdly, what that means is that as oversaturated as it feels now, it would be that, but like 1,000-fold if other jobs weren't available.
People
so
would
then
get
at that
bored.
point, it would be like, who like how likely is it that you even are going to get like popular?
I feel like people would get bored of it really quick.
See,
Yeah,
that feels
you'd think
weird
so.
to me because that feels like an upside down triangle. We start small and everything grows up and out, which means at some point there has to be some kind of collapse. If the theory is that like it's going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, then something has to give there. It wouldn't actually make sense that every single person
People would just
this
get
is
tired
actual
of it.
YouTube though, right? Like we had a few people that were like the original YouTube stars because nobody was on YouTube, but now everybody is. So like 99.9% of the people who have YouTube channels, nobody's ever heard of them. I think that problem would just get even bigger. If you add more people, that problem gets worse.
You're right.
So there's the what is the I think the question that I have now is what is the poverty version of this job look like? Like, what are you doing at that point?
Well, I think that's I mean, not to get like grotesque or anything, but that's what the stakes are kind of about, right? When you learn that if everyone's getting nude isn't enough. Right, so then it becomes just like what are you willing to do?
Yeah, already gross.
Yeah,
I agree.
Even without answers
sorry.
to this question.
No,
And that's kind
you
of
don't need to give me answers. I already know. Gross.
well, so that's kind of what's interesting about OnlyFans because the platform currently is YouTube 2005.
Isn't it having this problem right now?
No, I don't think it's.
I thought I've heard people bringing that up already, where it's like because there's been this huge push for so many people to do it that it's actually pretty hard at this point to like start.
The thing that happened with OnlyFans was that it was not originally created for nudes, so
No,
it's
it's
kind of
not.
happened, which is that like musicians were on there, and then suddenly a girl took off her clothes, and people were like, "Who cares about music, dude? This is a platform for something else." And it kind of pushed that to the side. So yeah, I mean, I think
That's
with the
fair.
evolution of anything, that might happen with OnlyFans.
Absolutely.
But I don't know.
Well, why hasn't that happened with TikTok?
Because they don't allow that content on the platform.
Oh, so
Yeah,
if they
it's
did,
all about
that's
what
where
the
it would be?
platform will allow.
Twitch, same thing.
That's a good point.
Twitch has since its inception been on the edge of becoming a porn site the entire time, only
Right.
because
Right.
they've been pushing those people away.
Yeah.
But like just barely.
Well, and the demographic.
Well, recently
that's
they
drawn
have started to
Twitch,
crack down on some things.
Okay, I didn't know that.
But
Yeah.
the demographic that's drawn to Twitch might have an overlap with the demographic that's already going to be drawn to online
Probably.
nude entertainment.
Well,
Yeah.
and what they're mostly drawn to is the girls with big boobies and tiny shirts and skimpy outfits who will sit for several hours and just like let people stare at them or play video games dressed like various anime characters, which like no hate in their direction or anything, but it's still totally a thing that girls do. I've seen it a bunch.
Right.
And a lot of the time sometimes it's the first thing I see when I get on Twitch. And it's kind of unnerving. It's
Right.
like now that I know what's on here, it's like I'm a girl in the gaming community. No one's gonna give a shit about me playing a video game unless I take my clothes off. Is initially the impression I get from that.
So is the implication that because a class system has to exist within those groups of things, like YouTube, TikTok, OnlyFans, or whatever, they're the people who are the lower class, only willing to get nude, versus people who are the upper class, who make a lot of money doing God knows what. Is your point that within YouTube, we would essentially be the lower class version of that because we're unwilling to
Literally gonna
subscribe to the
say,
things?
all I know for sure is that I have very high standards for myself, and also I make very little money compared to a disappointing amount of 15-year-olds.
Right?
Right, so is that kind of the point? Is that these are each their own little class system, and that you and I are maintaining a lower class position because we're unwilling to do the things it takes to get money?
I mean, yes, this also feeds into my theory on why all rich people are terrible, because only terrible people are willing to do the things it takes to get rich.
Is it truly terrible though? Because it's realistically what
What
people
we're
want to
talking
see.
about isn't as bad as, I mean, so the worst thing you could do is harming another person for your own gain. That's the thing that actual billionaires do, and that's why they're billionaires. So I don't know what the version of that looks like in this world. I assume actually we probably do know what it looks like.
What's that?
It's YouTube drama stuff. It's taking down other people.
Oh Christ! The
so
world
that
becomes
you can,
Jeffree Star and
Yeah,
Tana
exactly.
Mongeau or however the fuck you say her last name.
It's scandals. It's how scandalous can you be? Because that's who people are going to pay attention to, right? It's just reality TV as an entire planet.
Well, I think we should just yeet ourselves now then, because I'm unwilling to go through that transition of society.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so unwilling. Is that really what we have to look forward to? That instead, I would rather everyone was a porn star.
That's how I felt about Instagram.
I would straight up rather everyone.
Weirdly, the everyone as a porn star version of this world is more wholesome than probably what would actually happen.
What's actually going on. I would rather every single person post their genitals online daily than have society's functionality of class basically be who can be the biggest drama attention grabber out there. That's so disturbing. I didn't think this was going to happen. I didn't think when I asked the prompt, what if everyone was a porn star? We would ultimately come to the conclusion that would be a better functional system than the one we currently exist in.
I will agree. It is not often that our results are worse than the premise you start with.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I don't even know if it would change, worsen, improve the status of women in our society. I don't know how it would. I don't think it would change necessarily, but
there's always room for oppression. Someone will always figure out how to do it.
Well, that's what I mean by the big dick, small dick scenario.
Right.
It's like it's the same thing. It's the people who value your looks more are definitely you're gonna get more attention for that versus somebody who's, I don't know, got like a hair lip or something that most people find unappealing.
Would this knock out like the whole porn industry? Would it just collapse?
No, it would change. Like it has.
Yeah, I guess it would just
I don't think it would
evolve.
collapse. I definitely think it would change, but I don't think it would collapse.
Well, porn exists because of the access to something that doesn't exist.
Oh,
in
you
real
mean
life,
it's like
so
a unified, controlled sort of, if everybody's doing it independently.
Right.
I mean, yeah, if
that's true,
if everyone can do something at home, then you no longer need the thing that supplies it to people, right?
I guess that's
what I mean by that goes away, but then other things crop up around that to support the new industry instead. Because that happens in real life. I'm sure there are examples. I probably would be able to think of them faster in a different scenario, but
have we reached the conclusion to this theory then?
I guess so.
I have no idea.
Have we gone down all the paths and they all had answers?
There is no such wonderful fantasy as everyone being porn stars. It only turns into YouTube drama for the entire world.
It would complicate so many things.
Yeah.
So many things.
Well,
but we would totally adapt in just a weird way.
So I fucking dare you to bring this back around to Buddhism.
I've been trying for a few minutes now.
I don't know if any of that is what Buddha intended.
At the end of all of our podcasts, it's Kyle's goal to ultimately draw the topic back into a Buddhist mentality of some kind. Ideology.
I don't even remember why at this point. I
guess in a way you could twist it around to self-love and self-acceptance and that part, enlightenment in a personal fashion, in a way that people's bodies would be less trivialized. Maybe there would be potentially less of a stigmatism around being naked or being a sex worker or being nude on the internet. But
I dare you to do a better job than that.
I'll give her this one.
No sense of enlightenment or anything? Nothing?
No, this is just sad.
No, it's just sad.
Depressing.
I've got nothing.
It was, but also a little bit uplifting. It's nice to know that the route that society could have gone down to be a little bit better is that everyone was naked.
I would be happy, the sexual freedom and the self-acceptance that would come with that, because there are so many societal and emotional issues around the fact that we've repressed sexual deviant. Everything is a sexual deviancy, but we've repressed being naked or having sex or being in love with whatever you want. Or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I feel like we've got to be missing something. Someone who listens to this later is going to be like, I feel like you didn't talk about this one glaring element
we'll have
of
to
this
come
reality.
back to this eventually.
We'll do a follow-up episode of somebody.
Have to.
Yeah.
If we definitely need to, I think we might. Because I feel like there's one thing that we're all just totally missing. It's right there in front of our face. That would be a consequence of this reality.
We should probably start taking suggestions from listeners at this point. Huh? We've been going for a few episodes. For almost I don't know how many episodes. A decent number of episodes.
Yeah.
We're almost through your list. We get comments every time, so we should start taking actual suggestions and writing those down also.
Yeah, guys, if you have any suggestions for something that we could talk about in a future podcast, or if you have any recommendations for people we should have on the podcast, let us know. Put them in the comments. I have had people suggest certain things, but I just didn't know how to turn that into a topic that we could talk about. Or a lot of the times people are inspired by things we've said that are kind of already discussed in other podcasts. Like we'll say something and they'll go, oh, that reminds me, you should talk about this. And I'm like, I don't really know how to turn that into a future theory that could potentially exist.
So you're saying they need to phrase whatever their suggestion is a certain way. It needs to be posed as a...
Essentially like a what if the future was blank? Or what if this happened in the future is kind of the way that this
Even
needs
just like
to
the
go.
future of a particular topic would be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, the future of video games. I don't know, just like if there's like a specific, if there's
anything
a specific,
that could
like,
spark something.
Yeah.
I have one topic that I know you're really gonna like, which is what happens if the consequences, or I'm thinking it's like, what does the world look like if there are real life consequences of VR actions?
I knew there was a VR one hidden in there somewhere.
There's a few.
So I definitely want to get to some of those at some point.
And I think we definitely will. But for now, we are at time. Thanks everybody for listening. I really appreciate both you guys coming on here because I feel like we needed a jump start.
Thanks for just jumping in last
Yeah, of
minute.
course.
Yeah, we really just like stalled out at that one topic, so it was nice that you guys jumped in.
We literally were just like, this sounds like economics, and I don't feel like I can talk about this anymore.
It's nice though, because we just live with an economics guy.
Yeah.
Like we're just like, man, well, because economics is one of those distinct like things where like, I have no idea how it works. Like I have a lot of knowledge. I have a little bit of knowledge on a lot of things.
I have approximate knowledge of many things.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly. I know a lot of things just a little bit, but like economics, no, not even a little bit. Have no idea how that looks. And I even took an economics class.
Well,
I didn't do well.
He majored in it, so
that's why he's here. Thanks for your input. All right.
Glad I could help.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for
Bye.
listening.